And welcome to this edition of the Native News Update on this Monday, January 30th. I'm your host for today's program, Paul DeMain. Many of the stories right here can also be found at our website at IndianCountryNews.com. And here are a few of the stories from the day from the Associated Press and other Native news sources. A design consultant for the Smithsonian's National Museum of the American Indian will be doing similar work for the University of Wyoming. John Paul Jones is contracted to work with the UW American Indian Studies program to develop a project profile for the proposed American Indian Center on the Laramie campus. The proposed center will house the American Indian Studies program as well as provide space for cultural events and a research institute. Jones's work with the UW is partially supported by a grant from the Wyoming Cultural Trust Fund. Jones will visit UW next month to meet with project stakeholders and begin gathering information for the project profile. Preparing the biggest homecoming yet of its kind. Authorities in New Zealand last week received 20 ancestral heads of the Maori ethnic people, once held in several French museums as a cultural curiosity. French Cultural Minister Frédéric Mitterrand and New Zealand's ambassador presided over a solemn ceremony at the Quai Branly Museum in Paris, where the heads were encased in a box, the largest single handover of Maori heads to be repatriated, according to New Zealand's embassy. Since 2003, the South Pacific country has embarked on an ambitious program of collecting back Maori heads and skeletal remains from museums around the world, yet the program has run into significant obstacles. France long resisted handing over such cultural artifacts, but a law passed in 2010 paved the way for the return of the Maori heads. They were obtained as long ago as the 19th century and one as recently as 1999. Some Maori heads with intricate tattoos were traditionally kept as trophies from tribal warfare, but once Westerners began offering prize goods in exchange for them, men were in danger of being killed simply for their tattoos. Prior man's son said his father has been hospitalized in Billings, Montana after being shot by a Bureau of Indian Affairs officer last week. FBI spokesman Deborah Bertram said last week as well the agency responded to a shooting in Pryor last Sunday evening, but she declined to release any details. Richard Martinez Jr. told the Billings Gazette his father, Richard Martinez Sr., was upset because a BIA officer was sitting in his squad car in the post office parking lot near the duplex where Martinez lives. The cop's been messing with us for nothing, Martinez Jr. told the Gazette. My dad got sick of it last night. Martinez Jr. said his father walked up to the officer's squad car. The two men exchanged words and his father punched the officer. Martinez Jr. said the officer used a stun gun on his father and then shot him in the back as he was getting up. $254 million casino in downtown Lansing, Michigan could create about 2,200 jobs and help fund scholarships for area students, backers of the plan said recently. The Keeway Din Lansing Casino would be built near the Lansing Center and owned by the Sault Ste. Marie tribe of Chippewa Indians, the city, and the tribe. Mayor Virg Bernero said it would improve the viability of the convention center and fund 4-year college scholarships for Lansing School District students under what's being called the Lansing Promise. Under the casino plan, Lansing would get about $6 million a year in revenues from the estimated $250 million a year the casino could bring in. Officials said the project calls for 1,500 permanent jobs and about 700 construction jobs. The last surviving member of the original Navajo Code Talkers turned 92 years old last week. The city of Albuquerque recognized Chester Nez for his contributions in World War II. Nez was one of the 29 original Code Talkers who developed the code based on their native language that helped confound the Japanese and win World War II. Nez told KOB-TV that he's happy to represent such an important part of U.S. history, and he says a lot of people still ask him questions about the war. West Texas tribe has received about $200,000 in restitution so far from disgraced ex-lobbyist Jack Abramoff and consultant Michael Scanlon. The El Paso Times reported last week that the money is part of a court-ordered repayment for millions of dollars scam from the Tiguas nearly a decade ago. The Tiguas were employing a lobbyist in their efforts to operate a casino, are owed about $2 million from Abramoff and Scanlon. Abramoff in 2008 was sentenced to 4 years in prison for charges of mail fraud fraud, conspiracy, and tax evasion. He was released in 2010. Scanlon last year began serving a 20-month term for conspiring to bribe public officials. The former police chief of the Meskwaki tribe faces charges after the department filed complaints against him, including illegal weapons sales. The Gazette in Cedar Rapids reported the charges against Christopher Knauze January 25th. Online court records show Knauze is charged with non-felonious misconduct while in office and pistol or revolver acquisitions without a permit. Tama County Sheriff Dennis Kucera says Knauze is accused of selling an unidentified number of firearms without having a proper permit. Kucera says Knauze was arrested on January 12th. He posted a $3,300 bond and was released the same day. The Tribal Police Department's website shows that Ron Pexa is now interim police chief there. And that's going to be another roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. We want to thank you for joining with us and come back again soon. Miigwech.